But with COVID being such a difficult thing to navigate, right? So like we were speaking about earlier, public health, maybe they're holding back on saying certain things because of optics or because they don't want to get a certain reaction out of the public. Maybe some of the papers and independent doctors that are coming out online, maybe some of them are wrong, right? Who knows, right? But regardless, we have this really difficult moment of, we don't really know. It's hard to say this. I'm going to say we don't really know how dangerous the virus is, but we kind of do, because like we can kind of look at numbers and we can see the infection mortality rate, for example, and we know which areas, like which age groups and which people with comorbidities, we know who's at greater risk. And so one of the questions as it relates to freedom is, if we know that some of these people have greater risk, and but a lot of us want to be free. We want to be free to go out in society without a mask. We want to be free to not have a vaccine and still enjoy all the modern amenities of life. Let's say COVID does stick around. How do we bring in, like, from your perspective, and I don't think there's an answer here, but I'd just love to talk about this. How do we navigate a potential threat in community when that threat doesn't really affect everybody, but it might affect a lot of people?
Yes. Yeah, this is an important question to be asking. And it's not just about freedom, personal freedom at the expense of somebody else. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is about what kind of society do we want to have?
Right.
And what do we value as a society? Right now, we're making a collective choice to value the health and lives of the small percentage of people that you mentioned, and to value that over having, dances, festivals, choirs, summer camps, all of the things that are no longer permitted or happening under COVID.
Right.
And I can't say that that's a right or a wrong decision. But it is something we have to recognize, that we are sacrificing some values in favor of other values, that there are competing values at play here. And the reason that it's so important we can understand why it's so important to have that conversation by looking at the extremes. So if we were facing bubonic plague with a 50% mortality rate, I don't think anybody would say, well, it's, we should sacrifice 50% of the population so that we can have dance parties.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what if it's the other extreme? What if there's a very, very rare disease going around that is asymptomatic in 9,999,999 people out of 10 million? So 1 in 10 million people are going to die if we have an open society with freedom of assembly, festivals, parties, choirs, summer camps. Well, every life is precious, right? Are we going to decide to condemn, what would that be nationwide, 330 people to death just so we can have our parties? I mean, that's a pretty extreme example, isn't it? Yeah. Would we do that? Well, what if it's just one person? How are you going to explain that to their mother, that we sacrifice this so that we could have parties and not have to wear masks? Okay. So that's another extreme. I think most people would say, we're just going to have to accept that a few people are going to die for us to have a meaningful life. Well, COVID is somewhere in between those two examples. Even if you accept, and I just want to add in here that there's still a lot of anomalous information, a lot of anomalous data points that don't fit the standard narrative of infection.
Yeah.
I just want to throw this into the mix just to add a little bit more confusion and a little less certainty. And I hope I'm not killing people by doing that, but I just heard from a friend in the Ivory Coast. And she was like, yeah, no one wears masks here. the streets are bustling with people. We still have festivals, weddings. Like no one's even talking about COVID.
Yeah.
It's not even on the mental map here. And it's been like that, the whole time. And, they have like 133 deaths or something like that. Like they should have, an explosion of cases.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Is there some factor that we're not aware of? But I don't want to say, oh, then we should totally discard the diligent work of thousands of highly educated virologists and just say, oh, well, they're, deep state on the deep state payroll or something like that. If you actually talk to these people and listen to their podcast, these are sincere, intelligent people.
Yeah.
You can't exclude that data point either. But anyway, but that aside, if we take virology for granted, even then we have these conflicting values. And so what I way early on, I wrote this essay, The Coronation. And one of the things I went into was, why is our society so geared toward death avoidance, which is really death postponement, and risk minimization?
Yeah.
Why has that value become higher and higher relative to other values? And I won't answer that in this moment, but it is a crucial question. Otherwise, we could have the vaccine. Suppose the vaccine works. Okay. Suppose it doesn't have terrible side effects. And could we go back to normal? Not necessarily, because it maybe will prevent 3/4 of the deaths, but we'd still have, a quarter of the people dying. And if whatever 300,000 deaths a year in the US is reason for masking, quarantine, lockdown, distancing, then would 75,000 also be an argument for that, or 20,000 or 10,000? Like, where do we draw the line? If we say, so what I see is that if the underlying value of risk minimization is not examined, then the COVID regime will be permanent, even if COVID is eliminated completely.
Yeah.
Because people die from flu, people die from common cold.
Yeah.
Especially elderly people, they die from common cold.
Yeah.
Because it gives them pneumonia and they die.
Yeah.
And their lives are just as valuable as anybody else's. So the arguments that we have now for shutdown, lockdown, mask, et cetera, will never go away. They are permanent unless other values come to the fore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I very much resonate with this. And, because even just as a little tidbit, like paradoxically, sometimes we hear so much one death is too many when it comes to COVID, but if someone dies from a vaccine injury, it's the common thing is, yeah, but it's for the greater good, right? What do we really mean when we're comparing, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like this, like you were saying earlier, the crisis of meaning.